Howdy folks, Timber Grifter here. I'm going to try to get this video shot in between thunderstorms. Hear that one coming. So, I'm getting ready to leave home for up to 2 months. I'm going to go help my folks move halfway across the country. From the east coast to the middle. Right in the middle. Smoking some Mixture 79 here. Recommendation from the Artful Codger, or at least that's what he was calling himself last time I was on YouTube. He might have changed it again, or who knows, he wasn't on there for a while. Anyhow, I've been moving all my stuff from my my buddy's pole building back here to my place, mostly building materials. For the last week. Various personal possessions as well, you know, wheelbarrows full of axes and totes full of books and all that stuff. But because I'm going to be gone for possibly up to 2 months away from home and not able to take much with me, I've been going through stuff and figuring out, you know, what pipes I want to take. And that's a difficult process. I've got it down to about 10 right now, and I think I could cut that number in half and I might be good. Don't really need more than that. But any of you knife nuts out there, or axe junkies, or any of these other words we call ourselves, will likely understand when I say I'm having a hard time picking out my cutlery. Now, I know which knives I'm taking, because I've got a lot of knives, but I'm down to just the ones that I use pretty regularly and are task specific, and it's just a few. But what's been bugging me is, what do I want to take for a chopping tool? Obviously, I'm not going to be packing an axe along in my, well, I could pack an axe along in my duffel bag, and because I'm flying out to East Coast, and then driving one of the trucks back with them, helping to move. So I could take an axe, but I really don't need to. I don't need the weight, and it might put my check baggage overweight anyway. So, it's a problem I've been working on, and there's a few choppers I use regularly, but I don't know. One of my favorite kind of tools is a Tomahawk. Tomahawk is usually a fairly lightweight, smallish, sort of like a hatchet. It's useful for all kinds of things, from, you know, chopping down smaller trees, carving things out of wood, or rough carving things out of wood, you know, manufacturing basic woodcraft, bushcraft type of stuff. But the nice thing about a Tomahawk is the handle is not permanently affixed to the head. So it can be taken apart relatively easily, which is nice for packing it away. And ideally, if you're really traveling light, all you'd carry was the head, as long as you were somewhere that had, you know, trees, wood to be had, because you could just make a handle out of a handy branch without a whole lot of work. Because the head just relies on centrifugal force and friction to keep it in place. So, and I kind of grew up with a Tomahawk in my hand, you know. I think I got my first one when I was definitely under 10. A little black powder shop opened up in my hometown, and my dad and I went in there, and there was this real nice Tomahawk with a real nice walnut handle. Not hickory, it was walnut, black walnut. It had a great shape to it and a little heart cut out. And of course, I saw the movie Last of the Mohicans when I was a little kid, so and I was, pretty steeped in the frontier stuff, and the tomahawk is definitely a tool of the American frontier and the Canadian frontier. I say America, I should say North American frontier. In any case, I wanted that tomahawk, and he bought it for me, and I used it for years, and it was a great tomahawk. I acquired various other ones. When I was doing reenactments, I learned to throw tomahawks, and throwing tomahawks and knives has continued to be one of my hobbies. But I don't currently have any tomahawks that are appropriate for my needs other than throwing. Ones that I've got for throwing are just kind of old junkers, and they're not constructed all that well. So, anyway, back in high school I made a couple of tomahawks with some old guys that I knew, showed me how to do it. Forged them out of hay rake blades, and strap steel for the eye, and then welded the head onto it. Rather than forge welding, actually stick welded it on there, which is fine. And I kept one of those for a long time, and I used it for throwing, and I made it for throwing. It's a specific shape for throwing, and over the years I've reground it 3 different times. So it keeps getting a little shorter, and the blade keeps getting a little more angled. And if you throw tomahawks, you go through handles pretty quick because it's impact. If you miss, you snap a handle or throw another tomahawks and maybe nick a handle, and over time it weakens it and breaks. So this head's been sitting around rusty with no good handle on it for probably 2 years. And as I was debating about what cutlery to bring along for this 2-month trip, I thought, you know what, I'm going to redo that tomahawk again. And I never buy tomahawk handles. I always make them out of broken axe handles or preferably splitting maul handles. And I like a long handle on a tomahawk. The typical tomahawk handle is about 18 inches long. I like a longer handle. So, made one. See, this is kind of a unique shape. I've seen historical examples that were shaped this way, with this extreme angle. And it's kind of a long head, also longer than the typical tomahawk is maybe about that long, where my finger is here. So this is a long head with a long handle. It's not that heavy, as you can see it. It's easy to handle. It's not slow. It's light. And it's a sturdy blade. And I just love a tomahawk. So this is likely what I'll take with me. But yeah, it's just a nice blade. Nice tool. Good for felling smallish trees. I've sharpened it. Try to get the light to reflect. On the bottom side, it's sharp from about here to that point. There's a reason for that. Once you get this in a cut, sometimes it's difficult to pull it out, so if this is sharpened, it makes it a little easier to pop it out. The shape of this head also lends itself to butchering. It's also nice for peeling bark. That angle is nice. It would be better for chopping if the edge was more of this profile, but this works just fine for light chopping. The other thing that this point is nice for is if you're ever in a certain survival situations or whatever. This is a beer can, but if you had say like a bean can, you can put that point into the rim and tap the top of the head with a stick and use it like a can opener. As well as just splitting things with that point. So it's quite a useful tool, and plus it appeals to my fancy, right? My I don't know, my frontier mentality that I'll have to make a video talking about sometime. handles well. The handle is probably close to 2 foot long. But anyway, the other thing about the Tomahawk is it's not like a hatchet. The handle goes down through the top of the head and it's not permanently affixed, whereas say a hatchet like this Gransfors Bruks hatchet, which I've had since, I always forget if it was '02 or '03. $35 what this cost retail back then. They're over 100 now. Not that much inflation. These aren't worth $100. They're good, but they're not worth $100. Anyway, you see this is a friction fit, whereas this is wedged in place. That handle doesn't come off, and when it does, it's hard to deal with it in the field. Let's see if I can. This is on there pretty tight, and I just oiled the handle, so see if I can get it to come out. That Gransfors Bruks hatchet, I've had that for a long time, and it's got sentimental value as well as just being a nice, useful tool. Pause the video for a second so I'm not wasting your time. Alright, we're back at it. So I got the handle loosened up by pounding on this end, grasping the head and pounding it against the stump. So you see that's how that handle is held in there. Now you can see why you could just carry this and use a stick, an appropriately shaped stick, which isn't too hard to do if you're really traveling light. But this also allows this to be used on its own, sort of ulu-like. So it's a useful tool, you know. The other thing is about this particular Tomahawk is I make my eyes just a little bit bigger than your standard Tomahawk, so you get a little bit wider handle, get a better grip on it, doesn't fatigue the hand so much. And then the way that you put it back on, get it to where it fits fairly tight, and then tap this on a stump. There we go. See, this is a little wider than this, so it stops it from moving up. I see a lot of people online that buy the cold steel Tomahawks and they don't understand the concept of how this is supposed to work. And they get all upset because their head doesn't fit tight on the handle. What you need to do is take a rasp or some sandpaper and contour that handle properly so the head fits properly. Doesn't take much. It's not hard to do. It's not hard to learn how to do it. But don't be complaining because the handle doesn't fit quite right. Those things are cheap. There's nothing to complain about. But yeah, some of the other runners-up that I was considering for taking along as a chopper. Because as much as I used tomahawks as a kid, or a tomahawk as a kid, and then a hatchet, I used big knives. I had big knives when I was a little kid. I had an original made in India kukri. I've got a cold steel kukri now that I've been using since, yeah, back in the early 2000s, 2002 probably. It's a good blade, 13 inches long, pretty stout, handles well. Since I've been just at my place for the last week, I've actually carried this every day. Another one is the old Western Bowie knife, which is a lot lighter than the kukri, but still a good chopper. If you grip it low enough down, it's still a pretty good chopper. And of course, all these, the tomahawk and the kukri and the Bowie knife, are also all potential weapons, which it's extreme unlikelihood I would ever actually need any kind of weapon. But, you know, I'm an American. I like to think about these things. Plus, I don't like to not have certain options. Having some kind of weapon in certain situations gives you a choice that you have if you don't have one. So, But that's not primarily how I look at these things. That's just a possible function. One of the other runners-up was this, my original hatchet that I had as a boy. It's an old Collins. I think it was made in the 70s. It's one of the ones that still had the good steel in it. This will take a shaving sharp edge and hold it for a long time. This was given to me when I was a kid by my grandmother. I used to stay at her house after school and till my parents could pick me up, and she used to have me do some chores from time to time, and one of the things she had me do was go and cut down, I think they were probably lilac bushes, cut down all the lilac bushes, and she told me in the basement there was a hatchet and I should grab that and go cut down all the lilac bushes in the yard. So I did, and when I was done she told me, why don't you just take that home with you? So this was my first hatchet. I had this when I was pretty young. I think it was maybe 4th grade. Grade 4 if you're not American. But yeah, so I think the Tomahawk is my final decision. I just have an almost spiritual connection with the Tomahawk. It's one of my earliest, most used tools. So, and this one is although it mimics a historical design, it also is, it's my design, and I've made the whole thing. So anyway, that's a long enough video. So yeah, as I'm traveling around, I'll have more access to the internet than I do when I'm home here, so I'll be putting up a few videos from here and there. But because the storm is about to hit, the mosquitoes are coming out hard again. Not too bad yet, but I can hear them. I'm starting to hear the from the forest. If you don't live in mosquito country, it's probably confusing, but there's an actual volume of sound that they produce when they're all coming out. All right. There's the thunderstorm. I'm hearing occasional rumbles, so it's about to hit. Well, y'all take care. Go outside.